You wake up exhausted. Your joints feel stiff before you have even stood up. Your gut is bloated before you have eaten a single thing. There is a low, dull ache somewhere in your body that you have stopped even questioning because it is just always there. You have tried the anti-inflammatory diet, you have done the turmeric lattes, you have cut gluten, tried fasting, bought the supplements, and yet nothing changes. Here is what nobody is telling you. The problem is not what you are eating or not eating. The problem is that your body has locked itself inside a self-reinforcing biological loop. A loop where inflammation triggers more inflammation, around the clock, 24 hours a day, whether you are eating perfectly or not. It is not a diet problem, it is a signal problem. And today we are going to break that loop down to its exact molecular machinery. Because once you understand why the fire keeps restarting, you will finally know how to actually put it out. If you want the hidden science of the human body, not generic health advice, hit subscribe. Now let us dive in. First, let us establish something critical. Inflammation at its core is not the enemy. Think of your immune system as a highly trained fire department. The moment your body detects a threat, a virus, a wound, a bacterial invader, it pulls the alarm. Immune cells flood the area. They are loud, aggressive, destructive on purpose. Their job is to burn the problem out, then leave. That is acute inflammation. It is fast, targeted, and it saves your life regularly.
The biological mechanism behind this alarm system is a protein cluster called NF-kappa B. It is a mouthful, so let us simplify it. Think of NF-kappa B as the 911 dispatcher inside every single one of your cells. The moment your cell detects danger, whether it is a pathogen, a toxin, or physical damage, NF-kappa B activates and sends out a chemical distress signal called a cytokine. Cytokines are the fire trucks. They carry pro-inflammatory molecules, the most important being IL-6, TNF-alpha, and IL-1 beta, to the site of the problem. When this system works perfectly, it is extraordinary. The fire trucks arrive, neutralize the threat, and go home. When this system fails, when that 911 dispatcher never stops sending calls, this is exactly why you experience the chronic low-grade aching, swelling, brain fog, and fatigue that feels like it has no source and no solution. The fire trucks never go home. They start damaging the very tissue they were sent to protect. And here's where the story becomes dangerous. So why will the fire trucks not go home? Because something in your environment keeps sending false alarms over and over, 24 hours a day. There are 3 primary accelerants driving chronic low-grade inflammation in the modern body, and they all feed each other. This is the part that most health content gets completely wrong.
Accelerant number 1, visceral fat, the undercover cytokine factory. Most people think fat is just stored energy, passive, inert, just sitting there. It is not. Visceral fat, the fat stored deep around your organs, not the fat under your skin, is metabolically active tissue. Think of it less like a storage warehouse and more like a rogue chemical plant that has been built inside your abdomen without your permission. This rogue plant continuously manufactures and releases pro-inflammatory cytokines directly into your bloodstream, specifically IL-6 and TNF-alpha, the same fire trucks from phase 1. Research consistently shows that elevated visceral fat is a primary driver of chronically elevated systemic inflammation, meaning your 911 dispatcher is receiving fake emergency calls around the clock, even when you are asleep, even when you are eating a salad. This is a primary reason why people with excess visceral fat frequently experience systemic symptoms: joint pain with no apparent injury, fatigue with no apparent cause, skin flare-ups with no apparent trigger. The source is not where the symptoms appear. The source is the factory.
Accelerant number 2, the gut barrier, when your border wall develops cracks. Now let us go inside the gut, and this is where the science becomes almost science fiction. Lining your intestines is a single layer of cells held together by proteins called tight junctions. Think of this lining as a heavily guarded border wall. Its job is to let nutrients through while keeping bacteria, toxins, and undigested food particles locked inside your gut where they belong. When tight junctions weaken from processed foods, chronic stress, alcohol, and certain medications, the border wall develops microscopic cracks. Partially digested food particles and bacterial fragments called LPS begin leaking through into your bloodstream. LPS is essentially bacterial wreckage. And when your immune system detects bacterial wreckage floating in your blood, it does exactly what it is designed to do. It pulls the alarm. NF-kappa B activates. The 911 dispatcher goes into overdrive. This mechanism is frequently described in the research literature as a primary driver of what we now call leaky gut-driven systemic inflammation, and it is strongly linked to conditions ranging from autoimmune disorders to depression to cardiovascular disease. Your brain feels foggy, your joints ache, your mood crashes, and you have no idea that the source is microscopic cracks in an intestinal wall you have never thought about once in your life.
Accelerant number 3, cortisol resistance. When your body fire extinguisher breaks. Here is the mechanism that ties everything together, and this is the one almost no one is talking about. Your body does have a built-in anti-inflammatory system. It is a hormone called cortisol, produced by your adrenal glands. Think of cortisol as your body's internal fire extinguisher. Under normal circumstances, when inflammation spikes, cortisol rises to suppress it, calm the immune response, and restore balance. In short bursts, it is life-saving. But here is what chronic stress, poor sleep, and persistent low-grade inflammation do over time. They force your adrenal glands to keep firing cortisol constantly, day after day, week after week. And your immune cells, flooded with cortisol signals 24/7, begin to do something catastrophic. They develop cortisol resistance. Think of it exactly like insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes, where cells stop responding to insulin. Here, your immune cells stop responding to cortisol's anti-inflammatory signal. The fire extinguisher is spraying, but the fire does not respond anymore. Research published in major scientific journals and replicated across multiple studies suggests this cortisol resistance mechanism is a significant contributor to why chronic psychological stress is so strongly associated with inflammatory disease. The fire extinguisher is broken. The rogue chemical plant keeps producing. The border wall keeps leaking. And the 911 dispatcher keeps sending calls. This is the silent fire cycle.
Now, here is the mechanism that locks it all together, and why simply eating better frequently is not enough to break it. The 3 accelerants do not operate independently. They form a closed, self-reinforcing loop. Each one feeds the others, each one making the others worse. Visceral fat produces cytokines that stress the gut barrier. A stressed gut barrier leaks LPS, which triggers more immune activation and more cortisol demand. Chronically elevated cortisol promotes visceral fat storage, particularly around the abdomen, which produces more cytokines, round and round. This is why people clean up their diet and feel slightly better, but never fundamentally better. They addressed one input of a 3-part loop. The loop restarts the moment stress spikes, sleep drops, or gut bacteria shift.
Now, there is a 4th player in this loop that we have not named yet, and it may be the most underestimated driver of all: mitochondrial dysfunction, the power grid going dark. Your mitochondria are the power generators of every cell in your body. Think of them as thousands of tiny battery packs, converting the food you eat into usable cellular energy, a molecule called ATP. Here is what the research increasingly shows. When mitochondria are under sustained inflammatory stress, they begin generating a toxic byproduct called reactive oxygen species, or ROS, sometimes called oxidative stress. Think of ROS as the exhaust fumes from a damaged engine. A little exhaust is normal, but a damaged engine running at full throttle 24/7 fills the room with poison. Excessive ROS directly activates NF-kappa B, our 911 dispatcher, from the very beginning, which means inflamed cells produce damaged mitochondria. Damaged mitochondria produce oxidative stress, and oxidative stress reactivates the inflammatory signal that caused the damage in the first place. The cycle becomes biologically self-sustaining. This is why chronic inflammation frequently leads to accelerated aging, declining cognitive function, and persistent fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to fix. Because the very engines producing your energy are simultaneously generating the fuel for your fire.
Which means your fix is not a new supplement or another elimination diet. You need to interrupt the loop at its biological root, simultaneously and in the right sequence. Here is exactly how we do it. Quick note: the following is educational content based on current research. please consult your physician before making changes to your diet, supplementation, or medical care, particularly if you have a diagnosed condition. The first priority is sealing the gut barrier, because a leaking border wall means your immune system will never stop receiving false alarms, regardless of what else you do. The gut lining is repaired through a specific amino acid called L-glutamine, the primary fuel source for intestinal cells. Additionally, short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, produced by fermenting dietary fiber, have been shown to directly reinforce tight junction proteins. Practical action: prioritize fermentable fibers found in foods like cooked and cooled resistant starches, leeks, garlic, and green bananas, alongside targeted L-glutamine supplementation if clinically appropriate. Begin here first. A sealed border makes every other step more effective.
Step 2. Dismantle the rogue chemical plant. Visceral fat cannot be targeted directly, but it is disproportionately responsive to specific interventions. Time-restricted eating windows of 8 to 10 hours have been shown in multiple studies to significantly reduce visceral fat accumulation, independent of caloric intake. Additionally, Zone 2 aerobic exercise, low-intensity sustained movement where you can hold a conversation, is a primary driver of mitochondrial repair and visceral fat reduction simultaneously. Practical action: compress your eating window. Add 30 to 45 minutes of Zone 2 cardio 3 times per week. This dismantles the factory and begins rebuilding the power grid at the same time. Step 3. Recalibrate the fire extinguisher. To restore cortisol sensitivity, you must regulate the signal, not suppress it. Chronic cortisol dysregulation is most strongly correlated with 2 inputs: poor sleep architecture and unresolved psychological stress. Research consistently identifies deep, slow-wave sleep as the single most powerful reset mechanism for cortisol rhythm. Compounds like ashwagandha have demonstrated in randomized controlled trials a measurable reduction in cortisol levels and inflammatory markers, though these work most effectively as a supporting tool within a broader lifestyle shift, not as a standalone fix. Practical action: protect sleep above everything else. Enforce a consistent sleep and wake time. Consider evidence-backed adaptogens only as support, not substitutes.
Step 4. Quench the oxidative exhaust. Finally, reduce the ROS burden on your mitochondria to prevent the cycle from reigniting at the cellular level. Polyphenols, found in deeply colored plants, green tea, and extra virgin olive oil, act as direct NF-kappa B modulators. They do not suppress inflammation the way a drug does. They help recalibrate the 911 dispatcher sensitivity threshold, so it stops sending emergency calls in response to non-emergencies. Practical action: add color diversity to every meal, not for generic eat-the-rainbow reasons, but because each pigment class represents a distinct NF-kappa B modulating compound. This is targeted cellular signal repair, not aesthetics. Chronic inflammation is not a mystery. It is not bad luck. It is not simply aging. It is a loop, and every loop has a breaking point. Now that you understand the machinery, the 911 dispatcher, the rogue chemical plant, the cracked border wall, the broken fire extinguisher, and the damaged power grid, you are not guessing anymore. You are intervening with precision. The fire does not go out because you eat a little better. It goes out because you stop the cycle at its source. And that work starts today. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is the #1 symptom you are trying to fix right now? Is it the joint pain, the brain fog, the constant bloating, the fatigue that sleep does not fix? Tell me below. Your answer helps me build the exact content that addresses your specific loop, not generic health advice. And if this video made something click for you that nothing else has, you know what to do. Subscribe, because we are just getting started.